Hello, everybody. So, I'm Teresa Gutierrez, owner of 11th Hour Shaman, and I started a podcast. I have recorded this content about fever myths twice, and my computer has lost the ability to let me edit things and create the podcast. So here we are, stuck with my face on video while I share with you all this information. I just thought it would be so much easier to listen to a podcast than to have this in a video. But I suppose anybody can make it work for them. So here we go. We're going to talk about fever myths. There's 11 of them. And the rattlesnake, the yellow rattlesnake I had a dream about. So I actually love the topic of fevers, not because I enjoy fevers at all. They're very uncomfortable, but because the topic of fevers and knowing how to actually take care of them means that we can actually empower all the people on the planet to know how to take care of their fevers naturally, holistically. And that makes me feel so free and so capable and so confident about my health. And I want everybody to feel that way. So, the dream that I had, just scrolling over here, the dream that I had the week that I originally was going to make this podcast was really interesting. So in the dream, I am walking down a very common path in the wilderness and nature, and it's dirt, and all of a sudden, this huge yellow rattlesnake just starts hissing and jumping. He's very agitated, and he jumps at all the people from 4 different directions. Like, he's jumping at all the 4 different directions, and we have to jump off of the common path in order to stay safe, which I thought was so fascinating. So of course we jumped, and none of us got bitten, thank goodness. But when I woke up, I immediately thought of some really important things to me. Number one, the first time I had a dream about a rattlesnake shedding its skin about 5 or 6 years ago, that was very significant to me. So to have a rattlesnake show up in my dream again was something that made me want to pay attention. And then I thought about, I have this book, and it's about the Spirit of Herbs by Michael Tierra. And there's a whole section on elderberry, or the elder bush. It's elderberries and elder flowers. And snake medicine is actually associated with elderberries. And snakes, are the symbol of the medical staff. And snakes are transformative, and they help us to transmute energy from disease to wellness. And I think that is extremely important, because it's the death of the old and the rebirth of the new. And the other thing I thought of also, of course, was the 4 directions, and thinking about the cardinal directions in indigenous practices and how they think about things and think about the world and think about the directions of our lives and the spirits that help us. And of course, yellow. So yellow to me instantly speaks to the solar plexus, and I've had some really significant dreams about the color yellow. So I believe this snake medicine is literally helping us to feel empowered and confident in taking care of fevers. So the other thing I've noticed in my shamanic work is that snakes also, metaphorically, and I'm not talking literally, but the venom when doing shamanic work, it helps us to dissolve the life force energy of disharmony, which is extremely powerful medicine. And I feel like we can bring that to us and with us when we are dealing with whatever is causing the fever. So in this dream, I really believe that I was both me on the path and also the snake, the rattlesnake who is agitated. And sometimes when I'm thinking about what is happening in the world right now, I get agitated and I want to jump and hiss and rattle and say, wake up, please get off the common path. Let's do some unconventional healing. So I would also really find it so powerful and world shifting if people started calling on the four directions and their own inner power and learning natural healing art skills instead of calling on outer authorities to save us. I think that would be a very powerful shift for our planet and our experience of the world. So, what I also wanted to share is that I have been pondering that perhaps maybe about half of the human population is living in a constant state of emotional chaos, a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety and a lot of unknowns and no confidence at all. And I find this to be so completely heartbreaking because I think that a lot of the suffering that's happening right now is actually not needed. It is unnecessary suffering when you actually know how to take care of yourself when you aren't feeling well. So that's what this episode or video is all about. I've been pondering the reasons why I have never felt anxious or afraid of this new virus or that new virus coming up or any of the viruses because I have been practicing herbalism for 24 years. And so it just kind of, I guess I forgot that I used to be afraid. When I was 23 years old and had my first baby, I was afraid of everything. And I took that fear and decided that I didn't want to be afraid. And therefore, I wanted to learn how to be self-reliant and taking care of myself and my children naturally so that I would feel empowered, so that I would feel like I can handle this. And so now and in the future, I want to share my beliefs, my thought processes, my healing experiences, and some of the herbal recipes that I've always relied on for specific symptoms without needing a diagnosis. Of course, I am not a doctor. I don't diagnose or prescribe. I teach the historical and modern uses of herbs and other shamanic practices, and then adults get to make adult decisions. I'm a shamanic practitioner that partners with you to help you and your family get the healing results that you most desire. That's what I do. So I am not going to prescribe anything. I'm just sharing my beliefs, and I'm going to share a bunch of facts from a medical doctor coming up. So basically, I want to talk about the fear around fevers and how I believe it's the fear of fevers that actually cause complications, not the fever itself. So just to reiterate, I am a mother of 4. They're all adults now, and I am a grandmother of 2 little adorable kids. So I have had plenty of experience with fevers, and none of my kids or grandkids have ever used an antibiotic for anything. And literally one of them stepped on a rusty nail. Kids, what are you going to do? So we just have used herbs, essential oils, natural healing modalities to deal with all the things. And we have had almost all the things. And we also haven't used other prescription drugs, and we haven't used over-the-counter medications. So one of the little things I would like to talk about is that for 200,000 years or so, our ancestors used plants' energetics to treat symptoms, and they survived well enough that all 8 billion of us are still here. So real medicine grows right up out of the earth. And the herbs that we'll be discussing do not have scary side effects. So there is a major bonus. They are safe and effective. Real medicine can also come right through our hands and can come to us through our dreams and our open-hearted conversations, which I will share a story later, and also our prayers. Meditation and prayers have literally saved my life. So I don't ever want to discount that or have anybody else think that prayers and meditation don't do anything for us, because they absolutely do. The main focus of this video is fever myths and the rattlesnakes, or yellow rattlesnake. And I'm going to share proven herbal strategies to combat fevers naturally so that everyone will be fortified in their self-reliant skills while putting your minds and hearts at ease when being faced with a fever. We will thoroughly discuss the 11 facts about fevers every human needs to know, because there are some long-standing myths about fevers, and I'm going to bust those myths today. I am your myth buster today. I'm specifically talking about viral infections, but I would also apply this knowledge to bacterial infections. And before we get into that, just real quickly, I want to invite you to jump into my little time warp portal for just a moment. So if you're not driving and you can close your eyes, it would even invite you to do that. Consider this fact about us humans. Put yourselves in this world. Our ancestral remains have been found in Africa about 200,000 years ago. Well, that's what they date back to, right? So imagine yourself on this beautiful, unpolluted planet Earth in a time where you and your people never even had words. You didn't have books, but you did have plants. You had dreams. You had the power of observation. All your feeling senses in this world are dialed in, where intuition, dreams, gut instinct are all life-saving. They are all valued. They are all paid attention to and followed up on, like immediate inspired action, right? And you also had your tribes, you had your shamans, your medicine men and women. And in this environment, in this pure, beautiful earth environment, how do you make sure that you and your children and your grandchildren survive? There are no drugs, just the planet Earth. What is your medicine? Humans have been relying on plants for their survival 200,000 years longer than we've been relying on patented chemical drug medicine, otherwise known as pharmaceuticals or over-the-counter medications. We evolved with the viruses and the bacteria of the world. We are covered inside and out with these helpful, friendly flora, aka bacteria. We have always had a powerful, intelligent immune system that has always known how to overcome infections. And it's especially good at it, at this infection fighting thing, when properly nourished with good foods, herbs, and other earth-based shamanic practices that support the person who has the fever. Leaving behind our birthright to use plants, shamans, and dream medicine, entering our modern world, there seems to be a common belief that fevers are somehow dangerous. Let's be really clear here. Fevers are not dangerous. Fears about fevers is what is dangerous. So when people are afraid of the fever, it causes them, through that fear, to take unhealthy, unnatural actions to stop the fever, which actually causes complications and possible dangerous side effects. So my objective for this video is to get the truth out into the world so that people stop reacting to fevers in fear and then accidentally harming themselves or their children with fever drugs and then blaming the illness instead of the drugs for the complications. So let's go through the facts of Dr. Bernard D. Schmidt, SCHMITT, MD. He wrote about this in his book, Your Child's Health, but the information applies to us adults, of course. So myth number 1, all fevers are bad, especially for children. Fact, fevers let us know that the body's immune system is activated, which is a good thing. Fevers are one of the body's protective mechanisms. Fevers indicate that now our immune cells are reproducing faster than the pathogens. We function better than the pathogen in those fever temperatures. Fevers are good for children and adults because fevers help the body fight infection in this way. So let's put fever temps in perspective because I think this is part of the myths. 100 to 102 degrees Fahrenheit is considered a low-grade fever and it's beneficial. Fevers from 102 to 104 degrees Fahrenheit is also beneficial. It's considered a moderate grade fever. Over 104 degrees Fahrenheit is a high fever and it causes discomfort, but it is harmless. Really want you to take that in. Fevers of 105 degrees Fahrenheit are considered a high fever, and there is a higher risk that there might be a bacterial infection. However, it's still useful. It's just an indication of what is actually at the root cause of it. So then we go to over 108 degrees Fahrenheit. This is considered a serious fever, and the fever itself can be harmful. Myth number 2, fevers cause brain damage, or fevers over 104 degrees Fahrenheit are dangerous. Fact, fevers with infections do not cause brain damage. Only body temperatures over 108 degrees Fahrenheit can cause brain damage. The body temperatures go this high only with high environmental temperatures. For example, if a child is confined in a closed car in hot weather. So this could also happen if there has been brain damage to the hypothalamus via an accident or possibly an injection of heavy metals that has gotten to the brain and is causing some serious problems up there. Myth number 3, anyone can have a febrile seizure. Fact, only 4% of children have a febrile seizure. Myth number 4, febrile seizures are harmful. Fact, febrile seizures are scary to watch, but they usually stop within 5 minutes. They cause no permanent harm. Children who have had febrile seizures do not have a greater risk for developmental delays, learning disabilities, or seizures without fever. Myth number 5, all fevers need to be treated with fever medicine. I'm going to directly quote Dr. Schmidt here, not that the rest hasn't been, but I just want to separate this one out a bit because I have some different perspectives. So he says, fact, fevers need to be treated only if they cause discomfort. Usually that means fevers over 102 degrees Fahrenheit or 103 degrees Fahrenheit. So here's my deeper truth. This is my perspective and my experience, okay? You do you. But fevers don't actually need to be treated with drugs just because somebody is uncomfortable. Discomfort is part of living a normal human life. It sucks. Fevers are horrible. They feel terrible. I get it. I totally get it. Nobody likes it. Most people feel like they're going to die when they have a fever, and then most people actually don't die, right? We just hate them. And so we do these things to stop the fever, but we actually cause ourselves more harm that way. So fevers are actually blessing our bodies to make us slow down and reevaluate how we created this situation while we tend to our health. We tend to our bodies with mild food, nourishing herbs, and other shamanic practices. Nobody wants to watch their children suffer with a fever. They're uncomfortable. I know. I had 4 kids, plenty of fevers, and the 2 grandbabies, they've had some fevers, not a lot, but they've happened. And I never brought their fevers down with drugs. We've only used herbs to support their body's innate intelligence. I actually don't even use a tepid bath. It's just not in my wheelhouse. It's not what I do. I don't support that philosophy, I guess you would say. And if the kiddos wanted some cuddles and TV time, of course they got that. They got plenty of love, attention, and nourishment, but they did not get drugs. Fever drugs are not designed to heal the body. They're designed to stop the body's natural functioning. That's important. So, of course, stopping the body's natural functioning can lead to complications, such as the body not being able to overcome the pathogen or the infection, right? So consider this. Would you rather be uncomfortable for a few days and overcome the infection, or be comfortable and then face further complications and possible death? And a lot of people that take these fever medications, they feel more comfortable and therefore they think they're well enough to go to work. Because back in the day, workplaces used to get mad when people got sick. So they would just go to work and they don't take care of themselves. And then they go to work and they shed this thing that they've got, whatever it is. And then everybody else gets sick at the work. And then they all come to work sick. Like, just stay home and take care of yourself. Slow down. Nourish yourself. It's just a fever. It'll pass in a few days. I would say less than a day, up to maybe 5. Depends on what's going on. So additionally, there are possible side effects from taking drugs and possible overdose. And I want to give a huge warning here that do not ever, 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 never give aspirin to a child with a fever, because it can cause Ray's syndrome. R-E-Y-E apostrophe S, Ray's syndrome. It basically means some liver damage or possible death, maybe some kidney damage, because when we take drugs, we have to process them through the liver and kidneys, and drugs, by their nature, they're patented chemical medicine. And so there's always side effects. Some drugs have more side effects than others and more serious side effects than others, but it's just something that we have to be really picky and choosy about what and when we take things, right? Because we don't want to add an additional workload to the body, to the systems, when it's already trying to overcome this infection and it knows how to do it. So what it needs is the proper herbs and other proper care, right? So myth number 6, and we'll get into all that later. Myth number 6, without drug treatments, fevers will keep getting higher. Fact, wrong. Because of the brain's thermostat and the hypothalamus, fevers from infection top out at 105 to 106 degrees Fahrenheit or lower. Myth number 7, with drug treatment, fevers should come down to normal. Fact, with drug treatment, fevers usually come down 2 or 3 degrees Fahrenheit. Myth number 8, if the fever doesn't come down, if you can't break the fever, then the cause is serious. Fact, fevers that don't respond to fever medicine can be caused by virus or bacteria. Whether the medicine works or not does not relate to the seriousness of the infection. Myth number 9, if the fever is high, the cause is serious. Fact, if the fever is high, the cause may or may not be serious. If your child looks very sick or can't touch his or her chin to her chest, then the cause is more likely to be serious. They need to be able to touch their chin to their chest. If they can't do that, go to the ER or call 911 or get some help. Call your doctor. It's very important. Myth number 10, the exact number of the temperature is very important. Fact, how your child looks and whether or not they can do this is very important. So, myth number 11, temperatures between 98.7 degrees Fahrenheit and 100 degrees Fahrenheit are low-grade fevers. Fact, the normal temperature changes throughout the day. It peaks in the late afternoon or evening. So a low-grade fever is actually 100 degrees to 102 degrees Fahrenheit. So that is all 11 myths. I'm noticing that I say the word "so" a lot. There we are. If the fever lasts more than 3 to 5 days with no signs of improvement, see a doctor. Fevers are a sign that your immune system is working. Fevers are one of the human body's best protective mechanisms against pathogens. Yes, we've already found this out. They're very uncomfortable, and they're also very useful and highly effective. So at some point in raising my kids, the thermostat actually stopped working, right? No thermometer lasts forever. And I just never replaced it. I didn't know these fever facts when they were young. I just figured it out, found these, probably within the last 2 or 3 years. I don't know. It hasn't been long. And my youngest is 19 now. So anyway, by the time I found the fever facts, they were all grown up. And I think honestly, the numbers on the thermometer are what can trigger thoughts that create unnecessary panic and useless worry. So I'm not saying don't have a thermometer or don't use one. What I'm saying is it is possible, because I've done it. So it is possible to raise healthy kids without a thermometer. But of course, only for the last 200,000 years or so, right? Sometimes I could be snarky. Okay, so, and that being said, we live in this wonderful, interesting, dynamic modern world. So we have many, many, many options. And if you have a little baby that's 6 months or younger, it's always a great idea to find a great naturopathic doctor that you trust, and the doctor trusts the natural processes of fevers so they can help you through it and give you the support that you need, and all the things that you need, the herbs, the supplements, and the emotional support that you might need. So, because most fevers, they don't exist in a vacuum. Most fevers don't happen just with no other symptoms, right? It's usually caused by a virus or a bacteria. And those root causes of the fever, the actual infection, those need different herbs and support. So those things can be addressed with the herbs and the supplements while also supporting the fevers in the way I'm going to discuss here. There are many herbal recipes I've used over the years to overcome the root causes of the fevers, and I will cover those in later videos. Fevers are the focus today, and they're best tended to. Fevers are best tended to with diaphoretic herbs. Diaphoretic is simply an herbal term that means that it causes perspiration, that it increases your elimination pathway through the pores, the skin, the pores, being able to sweat it out. This is a elimination pathway. There are many diaphoretic herbs. A lot of them are used for fevers, and they are not pleasant tasting. They're often bitter. So yarrow, chamomile, boneset, and elderflowers are actually not the yummiest when they're taken at the proper dosages for a fever. Of course, chamomile tastes amazing when you're not taking those really strong high doses. But lemon balm, catnip, spearmint, peppermint, and red raspberry leaf are also really great for fevers. And so combining those yummier tasting plants with the more bitter tasting plants can really take the edge off the taste. Yarrow and elderflowers, boneset, because they're so insanely bitter, if you drink too much too fast, it can create some nausea. So being able to add some peppermint or spearmint, depending on you and what you like, that can take the edge off the taste and actually make it taste really good. Lemon balm specifically is really helpful for children. I mean, adults too, but children that have anxiety and restlessness during their fever can really help calm everything down. And a lot of people get really, restless and feisty when they get a fever. So just put in some chamomile, some lemon balm, lots of lemon balm, and a little bit of chamomile maybe. Yeah. And then we add some raw honey if you want. Some people like lemon. It's up to you. And the dosages for each of the herbs are actually quite different. And if I talked about each of those herbs, we would be here for hours. So my specific focus today is going to be on the elder plant, but I just want to share that my daughter actually really likes the elderflowers with peppermint. She's 24 now, and some raw honey. She says it tastes pretty good. And you can turn any of these tea recipes into some herbal popsicles for your little ones. And I would just mix it with non-dairy yogurt. You never, ever, ever take dairy when you have a fever. It causes and creates more mucus. It's just not good. So we would use non-dairy yogurt, or for a teeny baby that's nursing, mama wants to pump, then use some breast milk. But basically we use half a cup to a cup of the elderflowers. I just scoop them out of our giant pound of herbs bag, and a tablespoon of peppermint leaves in 4 cups of water that we've just boiled and taken off the heat. We stir in the herbs and we cover that and we let it steep for 30 minutes. And then we strain it and we either drink it as it is or we might add some raw honey. So if you or your loved one has a fever, you should definitely be staying hydrated. That's actually the most important thing, is to stay hydrated and to sweat. If you're not sweating, you are not hydrated enough. This is a problem. So I think when people have fevers, they should be drinking diaphoretic herbal teas. Some people might choose to have an electrolyte, like a water blend electrolyte. But I say, why do that when we have these herbs that are literally designed to help us get through a fever and kill infections? Like, that's their job. That's their purpose. Besides being gorgeous out in the world, right? They nourish us and help us heal our bodies. So the way we do this is we take half a cup of our herbal infusion and we drink it every half hour. My family also uses syrups, tinctures, oxymels, oils, and salves for fevers, but the most important thing is to stay hydrated with the diaphoretic herbs. With elderflower has a different dosage than elderberry. So elderflowers, you can make those teas for an adult, 15 to 30 grams per day of the flowers if you weigh it on a scale. So that's about half an ounce to an ounce. If you're going to use a tincture, that's 30 to 90 drops per hour. And I would add the tincture to warm water, almost like it's a tea. It's just easier, I guess, to put tincture in water than making a big batch of tea. But you still have to drink half a cup of fluids every half hour. So you may as well have tea. But if you're going to use the tincture, put the tincture in the warm water. It'll just help warm you up and get you sweating, and then keep up that hydration. Adults drink that half a cup of warmest possible elderflower infusion every half hour. And I set a timer and I keep it in a thermos or something warm next to me. And children basically get their dosage here by weight. So if it's a 25-pound child, then they would drink 1/5 of the adult dosage, which is hardly anything. I'm sure they can choke it down. Typically, these fevers are caused by viruses of the respiratory system. So we usually use elderberries also, not just the flowers. So Sambucus, I think a lot of people have seen this at the stores or the health food stores, but we just call it elderberry. As a syrup, adults take 1 tablespoon every 30 to 60 minutes, and children's dosage is adjusted by weight. So a 50-pound child would take 1 teaspoon every 30 to 60 minutes. Set a timer. Of course, you can use tinctures of elderberry. Now, for kids, you can use a glycerite, or if you're just avoiding alcohol, of course, you can do that. But again, the tincture would be 30 to 90 drops for an adult per hour in the water or the tea, and kids adjusted by weight, which really makes it hardly anything. But elderberries taste fabulous. They're considered sour, but when you put a little sweet with it, it's so delicious. My family uses elderberries in syrups mostly, but I've made some yummy teas with it, and it's always really, really smart to have elderberry tincture or extracts on hand. With the alcohol ones, they'll literally last forever. They have found tinctures in the pyramids, in Egypt, and they're still perfectly active and useful and effective. So if you were to make your own or buy a bunch, it's going to last forever if it's in alcohol. But if you do a glycerite, those only last 1 year, completely safe for kids and people avoiding alcohol. So it's another wonderful option. Elderberries stop viruses from reproducing. And again, when sick, adults take 1 tablespoon every 30 minutes. It's a food type herb, so small, frequent doses every waking half hour is not too much. Children's dosage adjusted by weight, so they would just take a 50-pound kid takes a teaspoon every half hour. But honestly, with my grandson, he could have been 30 pounds and I'll still give him half a teaspoon to a teaspoon, right? I just never worried about elderberries. It's not a drug. It's not the same as giving him something like Tylenol or aspirin, which of course I would never do. And those other things that people do. What do they do? I think ibuprofen or something. Those are actually dangerous, so I would never do that. But the elderberries are something I never have to worry about overdosing. So it's fabulous. There actually have been studies on elderberries proven effective against H1N1, and they generate significant improvement in symptoms within 2 days when you take it at the proper dosage. That's extremely important. I've had people say, oh, I took this elderberry and it didn't do anything. And, they're taking like a teaspoon 3 times a day instead of a tablespoon every 30 minutes. You see the difference? When it's taken at the proper dosage, it does its job, which is stopping viruses from being able to replicate themselves. And then the control group took 6 days to see improvements. I think that's a huge difference, 3 to 4 days improvement in recovery time. Everybody wants to recover faster. So if I were taking a tincture, I'd take a dropper full every half hour. It's pretty much the same equivalent as taking a cup of tea, but I would put it in the hot water. Elderberries and elderflowers are considered to be generally safe for everyone, which is awesome, right? Because that's not the same for yarrow. Pregnant women can't take yarrow if they have a fever. So elderflowers, elderberries, and red raspberry leaf, that's what I would use if I were pregnant. And spearmint instead of peppermint is just more gentle. So I would use those if I were pregnant, just saying. I am not. I'm 48. I'm not pregnant. Here's my suggestions for my spiritual, self-reliant prepper friends. I know some of you are preppers. It's always best to be prepared before anyone gets sick. The last thing you want to do when you're sick is to have to scavenge around looking for your herbal aids. There's been so many times where people text me or they call me and they're like, oh, I'm sick, I have a fever, or I have a cough, or I have this or that or the other. And I, run off the things I use and keep on hand. And they're like, I literally don't have any of those. So then I'm like, okay, what else? And then I start thinking more of foods and the spice rack. So there's always a solution. But I'm just saying, if you can prepare these medicines ahead of time, it'll be so much easier on you. So we start gathering herbs in bulk and making as many herbal medicines way ahead of time. Things like the syrups, the tinctures, the oxymels, the oils, and the salves, those all store really well. And the teas and infusions for fevers, they do need to be made fresh. But like we've discussed, you could use a tincture in very warm water instead of making fresh teas. But those fresh teas are so good. So keep those loose diaphoretic herbs on hand in, like pound size, bulk size, fill your cupboards. Or some people have basements and cellars, like do that. I decided to constrain my focus for this video on elderflowers and elderberries because the elder plant is associated with snake spirit medicine, as I mentioned before, transmutation, death, and rebirth. Fevers are an opportunity to experience a symbolic death and rebirth if we are rattled enough during the fever to recognize where transmutation or metamorphosis is needed in our own lives, in our own selves, in our own thinking, feeling, and behaving, right? For example, fevers are associated with our unresolved, undigested mental, emotional feelings of anger, burning up about something. Fevers show us we are in resistance to something, or we're affected by what we perceive as a lack of order. Fevers ask us to check in with the past and see if we're holding on to anything and sweat that out. Sweat it out. These mental, emotional signposts are merely weak links in the chain of our good and our protection. The fever is doing us a favor by showing us what needs to change for our personal growth and to expand our sense of personal power. What parts of our lives need an upgrade? So if you have a fever, what part of your life needs an upgrade? What conversations need to be had? Where might you be neglecting your soul's purpose? Where might you need some evolvement in your experience of yourself and your life? Now, because Elder is so great at removing lung congestion of all kinds, not just viral, we must consider and take a deep look within to see if there's any undigested grief or sorrow. Not just the anger that we typically use to cover up the grief and the sorrow. Undigested grief and sorrow can cause us to create behavioral patterns that at first we might believe are protecting us from experiencing further emotional pain. The lung and large intestine meridian in alignment with spirit is the expression of courage. Courage is required for all personal growth. So if you're not needing to access your courage, then I dare say you are not dreaming big enough, my friends. You want to activate your courage. This is a good thing. Courage is required for all our personal growth. And if we've been unwilling to access our courage to evolve our soul's purpose, which usually is undigested grief, could be a huge part of that. Believe it or not, learning how to process and digest our grief and our sorrows is how we evolve as humans and how we can evolve our soul's purpose with much more power, with much more groundedness and grace. So then we're bound to end up with some lung meridian misalignment if we're not digesting our grief and sorrow and we're not accessing our courage. So this is what the fever is showing us needs to happen. So I'll share an example of how I see these symbolic, metaphorical concepts come into actual real life. Okay. I had a friend back in 2011 who called me up and said that her family of 5 was passing around this sickness, this cough and this sickness and fever for 2 months. And so she's like, I need some help. So I gathered up all my herbs and I went over to their home and I taught the mom and the dad how to use all of these herbs to support their family. And one of the kids, I think she was 11 or 12, maybe a little older, I'm not quite certain, but she had an ear infection and the cough and the fever. So of course I taught her how to use all the herbs for that stuff. And then I was driving home, and as I was driving home, I swear, like the words came into my mind and it was like spirit was speaking directly to me and said, you're going to have to do energy work on the family. And I was like, what? No, because at that time, before 2011, I had only done energy work on my own family or very close friends that I knew wouldn't judge me. Because I was still getting to know me from probably 90. Let's see, Megan was born in 97. I probably started feeling things with my hands when she was 5. And I mean, I didn't understand it. And so I would use that gift with my kids through my prayer and my hands. And that's how I did the energy work. But to do this for my friends, I was like, and her kids, I don't know, it just really made me uncomfortable. But at the same time, I knew that spirit was telling me this was the next thing that needed to happen. And what's so crazy is she ended up calling me and saying things have escalated with this daughter. She's crying and she doesn't ever do that. What else can I do? And I asked the mom, do you know how to do energy work? Because I'm still trying to get out of it. And she's like, no, do you? And I'm like, yes, I do. And she's like, well, can you come and help? And I'm like, of course I can, because Spirit told me I was going to have to. And so, eventually I wake up and listen, right? So I go back and I'm doing energy work on her ear, and I'm feeling things. I feel things with my hand. I keep a prayer in my heart, asking Spirit to help to move this energy and do with it what Spirit will do with it. And the daughter, is feeling all the bubbles, and things are just really starting to move and move and move. And then finally, I feel like it's time to do. My hands are moving over her and doing a body scan. And I was expecting to feel the painful pricklies. Some people call it boyasan or something like that. It's a Reiki term, but it feels like static electricity. It's painful, and it comes out of the body and through the hands, and it lets us know there's something seriously happening there. And I don't mean like 911 emergency. I just mean there's pain here, whether it's emotional pain or physical pain. So I'm feeling that pain coming out, or I was expecting to feel it come out of her chest, but it wasn't coming out of her chest despite this cough. And I moved down and I feel it coming out of her solar plexus, which makes me think of the yellow rattlesnake. We've got the solar plexus, the yellow color, the personal power color, right? So I'm feeling all the pricklies coming out of her solar plexus. And then all of a sudden, I'm just overcome with emotion, and I am just feeling so much sadness, and I start to cry. And I know it's not mine, because I'm very clear about what's mine and what's somebody else's. So I'm crying. And then all of a sudden, again, I hear Spirit say the words, "There is a great sadness here." And I don't talk like that. So I knew that wasn't me talking, right? So Spirit says, there is a great sadness here, and I can feel the great sadness. And I tell her, and her mom is sitting right there the whole time. And I just tell her, this is what I'm feeling. This is what's coming out, is there's a great sadness here. And at the time that I was working on her, she didn't remember what that sadness was. But when I was done with the energy work and I went home, I talked to the mom later. And at some point during that time, the daughter, remembered what that sadness was. And what's so beautiful and amazing about this is, because of this conversation that I'm having with her body and speaking it recalled to her a conversation that needed to happen with her parents. And so it's just beautiful. It had nothing to do with her life at home, but what she was seeing outside in her world was very upsetting and disturbing to her. And she didn't like what she was hearing, hence the ear infection. And it was causing her a great amount of sadness and dread and powerlessness over the situation and what might happen in the future. And it terrified her. And so I just thought all of that came out because of the energy work, and they had a conversation, and their whole family actually ended up getting better and healing. And I think the conversation the daughter had with her parents was the most important part of all of it. And it stopped the cycle of what was happening. I think the energy that she was carrying completely changed because of that. And so I always encourage people to use both herbs and energy work when they're healing anything, be it a physical issue or a mental, emotional issue, mental, emotional health. So we can actually partner with elderflower and elderberries to support us and protect us through this courageous act of shedding our old skin to emerge as our new self, the self that we choose to be. What old worn out ways are no longer serving you? What old worn out ways are no longer allowing you to live the life that you long for and dream of? Elder, be it the flowers or the berries, will be your guardian spirit during your season of change and initiation into a new life, a new way of being in the world. That's what I believe fevers can do for us. Personally, after recovering from a fever, I would suggest well, I probably would also do this during, but I would suggest using elder herbal essence or a dream pillow. And, I have to warn you, I have dreamt with elderberries and they were super powerful. They were really loud and really powerful all night long. So I didn't get restful sleep, but they could perhaps be moved across the room or just use the diluted herbal essence instead. During and after a fever, I would also suggest the practice of smudging with elder flowers. To me, this is a reverent practice, much like instead of baptism with water, it's like a baptism of smoke with the plants and your prayers with spirit. And it doesn't just clean the air, which is an awesome side benefit. It cleanses out any heavy, unuseful energies in your body. We are literally being born into a new version of ourselves. And with an elevated commitment, determination, and devotion to serving your body, your mind, and your soul's purpose in alignment with your higher power. I believe that's what everybody could get out of a fever experience. And I have wondered this. I would love it if you would ponder on this and make some comments. And I would like to hear your perspective, but I wonder what the world would be like if we, as an entirety of humanity, saw fevers as a sacred rite of passage and initiation that signifies we are going through a personal transformation. And it's our job to nourish ourselves properly with mild food, medicinal herbs, and other shamanic practices. I believe this would take our world out of unnecessary human generated chaos and into more harmonious way of living sustainably with nature, with spirit, and with each other. That to me is the power of knowing how to take care of your fevers properly. So I realize this was long. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. If you have any questions about fevers, feel free to reach out to me for sure. And if you enjoy this, what I'm wondering if you would just love to do also is check out my free audiobook. So I wrote a book. It's called A Shaman's Dream Time. This is where I share some of my most pivotal experiences with spirit and the other side, I guess you would say. I've brought forward messages from the other side that will lead you towards deep peace, healing, and soul fulfillment. So exploring dream time and questioning your limiting beliefs and emotions allows you to honor your dreams, to gain clarity, and to wake up to your personal power in every situation, including fevers. This is a must listen to every soul yearning for a real relationship with spirit that will inspire you to live a full life of meaning and contribution in this world. The link, I will put it in the show notes below. And it's January still, so I hope you all are having a fabulous new year. I know we are. Thanks. Bye. After I'm done clicking all the buttons, then bye.